He is a Democrat running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 12th Congressional District, and that includes Perry, Juniata, and Mifflin counties here in central Pennsylvania. Lee Griffin joining us now. Thank you for joining us. And one of the things that strikes me the most about this district is just how vast it actually is. How do you give some of the more southern counties, like in our area, Mifflin, Perry, Juniata, the same type of attention that you would to northern counties like Bradford and Tioga, for example?
Oh, great question. Well, thank you for having me on. Appreciate you making the time. Yeah, this is the biggest congressional district in terms of square mileage in the state. And so that does present some unique challenges. But one of the things you have to do is just get in the car and go and be there in person. And with the pandemic, that makes it a bit more challenging. We've done a lot of stuff virtually. And with a lot of people sort of moving towards adopting technology and that sort of thing, it's been a little bit helpful, but there's also the challenge of not having great rural broadband in a lot of the districts. So that's something we need to work on.
The rural broadband is something that Congressman Keller mentioned as well. And he mentioned that to me, I remember 2 years ago when we spoke. How much of an issue is that, and how much of a priority is that in improving broadband to one of the more rural districts in the Commonwealth?
It's essential right now, and we've known it. Those of us who live in rural Pennsylvania have known this for a long time, that we really need to catch up on not just rural broadband, but cell connectivity too. Driving through most counties, you're going to run through dead spots for your cell service, and that can be a real impact on emergency services if you need to get those, or even just people trying to do business and live their lives. So there's two sides to that we need to take on. So it does need to be a huge priority moving forward, simply because we've had to rely on the internet and being connected way more this year than we ever expected to be.
Why are you running for Congress?
Because I am thinking about the future of my family and my wife and what we're going to pass on to future generations. I'm not a career politician. I'm a first-time candidate. But this year I decided to throw my hat into the ring and take a stand for the future, because I've seen over the past several years the impact that the ramping up of bigoted, anti-immigrant, and Islamophobic rhetoric that we've seen come around has had a direct impact on my family, my wife, and I want a better future for our kids.
What is, in your mind, the most important issue that you would address in Congress immediately?
So it's a two-part issue. I mean, obviously, recovery from the pandemic is the number one priority. That's become something this year that we certainly didn't think of at the beginning of the year. And there's two parts to that. One is the health side. We do need to work towards a vaccine and make sure that everyone stays safe in the meantime, following all the protocols we need to. But then we also need to focus on helping small businesses, workers, family farms recover and bridge the gap until the point we can really reopen things fully.
With the coronavirus, what is Congress not doing today that they need to be doing or would be doing if you are elected, when it comes to making sure that everyone is, that we're stopping the spread of COVID-19?
Okay. So one of the things that we need to do is pass another stimulus to get funding for schools, for local and state governments, and for small businesses and farms that need that extra help to make it through. The other part that we need to do is get on the same page between the different agencies and branches of our federal government and our state governments, so that we're communicating a clear message on how people can stay safe, because we've seen a lot of disagreements and inconsistent messaging between those groups.
So the House already passed the stimulus, the HEROES Act, and it stalled in the Senate. And I know you wouldn't be dealing with the Senate per se, but is there something that is addressed in the HEROES Act that you would change that would make it more palatable for Republicans?
I think the HEROES Act is pretty well formed. And I like that there's additional pandemic unemployment assistance earmarked. There's additional funding for schools earmarked there. And that's something that should be a point of agreement across party lines. And so I'm hoping that we can set aside the finger pointing and the blame game enough to actually help the people of the country.
How do you get the economy back up and running um, while still keeping in mind that we are in a pandemic world?
Yeah, it's a challenge. And when it comes to places like restaurants or stadiums or movie theaters where there's capacity limitations, it is a real challenge. So one of the things that's been successful as in the US and also varying programs around the world when countries have done this is keeping businesses open and maintaining the relationship between the employee and the employer. So the Paycheck Protection Program was designed to do exactly that. And for the companies that were able to secure funding, that's a great thing. So we need to keep that available because then you don't have workers out trying to find a new job. When the business reopens, they're already still employed and we can just bring those folks back and it's a faster recovery time.
Through your Zoom interviews and virtual meet and greets that you've been able to do over the last few months, what have you uh, what have you gained in terms of knowledge of what the most important issues are to voters in the 12th?
Well, we already talked about a few of them. One of them is definitely rural broadband. We've relied on it a lot. And there have been some moments where, I've actually been kicked off of one of the events that I was hosting because we lost internet locally. Um, so that's something that we really need to continue to work on. Are also pretty concerned about how the USPS is being treated and being funded. It's an essential service, particularly in rural areas where people rely on that for delivery of lots of essentials. And we're going to be leaning on them for mail-in ballots this year. And so what we need to do is support them, get whatever funding we need, make sure that they have all of the overtime, the trucks, the equipment, so that they can actually execute on the election the way we need them to.
To someone that simply doesn't understand, I mean, you've mentioned we need to improve rural broadband.
Sure.
How physically does that happen? Is it just a matter of putting more cables up in places that are sparse, or how does that physically technically work out?
Yeah, so I know a little bit about how the physical technical part of it works. So I'm not the expert, but from what I understand, it will actually require some physical infrastructure. There's some plans that require or make room for laying pipes through the roads. So you leave a conduit as you pave the roads. And there's a couple of bills that actually promote this, where it's like a dig once type of thing, where if you're going to resurface the road, also put in the conduit so that at a later point, you can run the fiber through that and it's already set up to serve the community.
Did you not realize that as part of being a congressman, it involves actually digging and putting broadband in homes?
If that's what it's going to take, I will be out there.
Fair enough. What changes are needed, if any, in your opinion, to the Affordable Care Act?
I think that the changes that we need to make, if any, are expansions, not reductions. So taking away things like protections for pre-existing conditions, kids able to stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26, the Medicaid expansion, that needs to stay. If we can expand Medicaid further, if we can generally expand the ability for people to afford coverage, that's the direction we need to go in. And also what would be I think a good addition, maybe as a separate law, maybe part of the ACA, however we want to do that, is some caps on what people are required to pay for essential medications like insulin.
I know you mentioned earlier one of the reasons why you're running is in connection to a lot of the calls for social justice and um, ending racism, things like that, that we've been seeing over the course of the last few months kind of play out in front of us. What does this mean to you, the social justice calls, the protests that we're seeing, and what changes are necessary in terms of social justice reform?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed about the social justice movement this year is the scale, the depth and breadth of participation throughout the country, even in small towns here in the Susquehanna Valley, where we've had people from all backgrounds come together. And I think that's a unique element of this moment that we're in, where lots of people are coming together and it's a unifying moment for supporting folks who need that support. Um, So to talk about things that need to be done, if that was the question, I think one of the things we could definitely work on is additional training for officers. So things like racial sensitivity training, de-escalation training, and potentially also having trained folks, whether they're part of the police force or accompanied, things like racial sensitivity training, de-escalation training would be very helpful. So we could provide additional resources to departments to do that, or use, part of it is the level of militarization that some, particularly the larger police departments and larger municipalities have, where if we can have community focused policing in addition to that, and have officers or people who are trained to address nonviolent situations, that would be very helpful to have those folks go, instead of always having an armed response as be the first response to every call that the police department has to field currently. I
Does
was
it,
talking to the mayor of Williamsport, and sorry.
no, please go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Talking to the mayor of Williamsport, he said something like 80% of the calls that their police department gets are nonviolent. And so it doesn't always necessarily require an armed officer to be there to respond to that. It could be someone who is trained to take things in a different direction.
Does systemic racism exist within police departments?
It exists within our society as a whole. And so as a consequence, yes. It's not specific to police departments and exclusive of all other places. It's a real thing that it's incumbent upon each of us to work on and address in our own lives.
Got it. All right, so I want to have a little fun, rapid fire here. Do your best to answer these as quickly as possible. I'm not going to time it, but I will ask you to answer as quickly as possible. Just
Sure.
to keep moving. All right. Best spot to eat in the 12th is?
Ooh, I'm supposed to answer that quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite place to eat is Bingham's. It's on Route 92 in Lenox. It's near my dad's place, and so whenever we go up to visit him, we like to visit there.
What is it?
It's a diner restaurant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Those are the best. Best concert you've been to?
Best concert I've been to. Well, I'll give you the first concert I've been to, which was a lot of fun, which is I saw the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones in, I want to say, Scranton, when I was in middle school.
Yes.
And, it was my first ever real live concert, and it was a great time because I got to crowd surf.
That's awesome. All right, admit it. What's the fastest you've gone on I-80?
Ooh. I have not gone into the triple digits. I'll say that.
Fair enough. Most recent Halloween costume you remember wearing?
I was Superman. I actually dyed my hair black. Well, I was Clark Kent. Dyed my hair black, got the glasses and everything. Yeah.
And this is going to take maybe a little bit some time, but let's see if you could do it. List all 15 counties in the 12th district.
Okay. I'll do all 15 counties, and I'll start in the Northwest, and I'll kind of go across the way we read, right? So we've got Potter, Tioga, Bradford, Susquehanna, then it's Clinton, Lycoming, Sullivan, Wyoming's over there in the corner. Then we've got the part of Center, then Union, Northumberland, then we come down to Snyder. Then over in your area, we've got Mifflin, Perry, and Juniata. That's not quite in order because Juniata's in the middle. But
right. You're forgiven. Last question here. How confident are you? Are you confident with the safety and the security of this election?
The safety and security of this election, yes. As far as being able to have a safe, secure vote, where whether you're voting in person on the day, in person early, or you're mailing in your ballot, that is a safe, secure process. I'm very confident in that.
Is there anything you're not confident in? Because whether you sounded like you understood the question or not, I'm not sure.
Oh no, there's been a lot of talk about it not being secure for a number of different reasons, but every method that we're using is something that has been tried and tested in the United States before. Got
it. Lee, thank you so much for your time and quickly hopping back on. I do appreciate it, and we all got it done in about 15 minutes.